Yeah, be excited, Kraken fans, because the Kraken is a sleeper team. The Kraken will sneak in as a wild card. You heard it here first.
It's not every day that we get to speak with a person who's been inducted into four different halls of fame. But today is that day. It's ESPN SportsCenter anchor Linda Cohn, also a charter member of the brand new Kraken Hockey TV network. Linda, thank you for making time for us.
Of course, love being with you, and thanks for having me.
Let's get the most important question out of the way first. You auditioned to be an emergency goalie with the Florida Panthers. Now, the Kraken might find themselves in that same situation. So, will you be bringing your gear with you to Seattle?
Great question. Let's hope for all of our sakes that the Kraken will have zero goalie issues this season. Those two don't get enough respect. I think they're a terrific tandem. But to be more specific, to answer your question, my goalie equipment, I still have it, but it's in storage, and that's where it will remain.
I understand. Well, they won't be asking me either because I can go down in the butterfly, but I couldn't get back up.
Yeah, right. I hear you. Listen, as you get older, it's the hips that go. I'm like, wait, I was talking to my daughter about this yesterday. We're in the store shopping and talking about what's going on. And I go, no matter how I work out, what I do, this or that. I mean, why is that happening? It's not so, like, I'm in denial. Like, I still think I should be feeling like a 25-year-old?
Well, we do need to emphasize that you're no stranger to facing pro shooters. Not that long ago, having gone between the pipes with the Panthers. So please tell us how that came about and what your memories are of that day.
Yeah, that was back in the day. I think it was like 8 years ago, maybe now, something around that time. And the Florida Panthers, kudos to them. They were having a serious goaltending shortage. A bunch of their goalies got hurt. Their top three goalies were hurt. They not only had to reach down to their AHL team, but they figured a good idea from their fabulous PR staff was to make this whole kind of contest to see who can be an emergency backup goalie for one day, and that would be the grand prize. And there was a segment where media people can take part. But I think I was the only one of two media people that actually took part in this. I was very serious. So yeah, I jumped on the ice with some really good goaltenders. And the first one got by me. Sean Thornton put it by my ear over my shoulder. But as you can see, the form's not great. But I stopped the next 10. So I let in the first one, then stopped the next 10. And man, I was so happy that I didn't super embarrass myself. But
Well, look at that kick, save, and a beauty.
that was one of my beauties. That was one of the good ones. You just need one to get that confidence back. But I wish they would have aimed for my glove side more. Thus, I wouldn't have to get up and down all the time, as you can see. And also, as I look at the video now, I see I definitely leaned on that one leg. It was my left leg to get back up all the time, it seemed. Let's see if I do it again. Yeah, that was my strong leg. So I should have kind of gotten up and down on my right leg. But just being out there with guys that can really shoot the puck. It was incredible. I can't get it. I still, and I thank the Florida Panthers for that because they were all in on it. We put it on TV. It was live on Sports Center, one of our day shows. It was great. It was so much fun.
Yeah, you had to do double duty. You had to stock pucks and then do a report about it.
Yes, I had a report on myself. Can you believe it? Throw to my own video. Go on. I mean, that's crazy talk. But it was great though, man. I was a queen of the world right then and there.
As we've documented, Linda Cohn doesn't just talk hockey, she plays hockey. So tell us how you ended up as a netminder.
Yeah, for me, it's an important story because I never would have become the broadcaster I was and doing sports broadcasting for as long as I've been doing it if it really wasn't for me playing goal. I was a kid with low self-esteem. I wore glasses that were thicker than this. I'm back to glasses now because the contacts can't work anymore. But they're not as thick as they were when I was younger. And then when I finally got contacts at the age of 14, started playing street hockey with the boys. And I grew up on Long Island, outside of New York, born in New York City though. And I realized I was pretty good at it. Like I had the great eye-hand coordination for street hockey. And my mother, God rest her soul, found a league on Long Island that allowed girls to play with boys, but the boys were dramatically younger than me. That was the part of the rule back in the day. But I learned to skate with goalie equipment on. I just wanted to play ice hockey and want to see if I could pull it off. And I was able to make that transition. But what playing goal meant to me, to getting back to that earlier point, was the fact that when I played with these younger boys, I mean, I was 14, I was playing with 8-year-olds when I started. It's just the way they had it going on. They just, I don't know why. It was lucky
It's
they let me on
because
the ice. It
women are
was
so fragile. They didn't want to break you.
Yeah, right, exactly. It was so silly, right? And I saw like these mothers, I had a dress like, I had to come basically all dressed because there was no locker room. And when I did have to put something on where it wasn't open to the public, I went in the ladies' room. But when I was in the main area and like the mothers, and I'm not killing the mothers because, I'm a mother and you protect your kid. But when they saw me, they're like, "What's a girl doing playing goalie?" Saw the ponytail out of my cool mask. And basically, I should have been babysitting their kids, not playing hockey with them, but that's their mind. So I learned to block out the noise. And, being a young person with low self-esteem, that was hard to do. I mean, everything you're affected by, the outside world and what they're saying about you. So being a goaltender really helped me learn to block out all of the noise, whether, after letting a bad goal, just, shake it off, or anything. Just don't let anybody phase you. And I think in today's broadcasting world, as you know, especially with social media, and I tell young people this all the time, you can't pay attention in those mentions of what they say or not say or whatever. You can't live your life that way. So being a goaltender really helped pave the way for me, for what I do and continue to do now.
I want to show you a photo. The one on the left is you on the boys' team in high school. The one on the right with your college women's team
Yeah.
at Oswego.
Yeah, that's great stuff. Thank you. My gosh. Yeah, and that was pretty cool. I made the boys team in my senior year at Newfield High School on Center Reach, Long Island. And it was a club team, but we played 32 games each year, something like that. And I tried out it when I was 16, 2 years of playing league stuff with the younger boys, right? I tried out when I was 16, a junior. I didn't make it, but I opened up eyes, with the coach and the general manager and all that stuff. And then the following year, senior year, I tried out again and I made it, and I was the backup goalie. I couldn't believe it. And I tell the story a lot, but it was just typical. I mean, back in the day, I was in the ladies' room taking off my equipment after the tryout, and the coach and the GM, they knock on the door. I go, "Come in," and that's when they told me I had made the team. And then I said those 5 words: "I won't let you down," because again, I knew what they were going out on a limb to put me on this team. They added extra stress, right? Because you have to tell the guys on the team, like, "Oh, you're gonna this girl now is gonna be on your team." This was back in the day. This was in the 70s, for goodness sake, like late 70s. So you can imagine this was incredible. But the guys were great, and I didn't back down. And I played in about, I played not a lot of, I played about 8 games. Started, I had some mop up duty. And what an experience, especially you'd think, how can I remember certain saves? I remember a big save I made. I came in relief. I didn't have a lot to do, but I preserved a 6-5 win with an incredible glove save from a guy coming down the left side from the faceoff circle, sent me a wrist shot my way. Thank God it wasn't screened, and I got the glove up. And the teammates really, that was early on in the season. That's when I really felt wanted. So when I went to college, Oswego State, which is near Syracuse in New York, and they had a women's team. And again, before, ahead of their time, because it was still a club team, wasn't what Oswego has now, because they have great teams now. But we still played amazing teams like Cornell. I played St. Lawrence. I played RPI. I played really with women's teams. And my experience playing with the guys really came through because I was used to getting harder shots. I was used to getting a lot of shots. And it really was a fabulous experience. But it was the first time I played hockey with women when I went to college.
I want to go back to this one other photo that I find
Yeah.
interesting because you're wearing the number one of your goaltending idol, the great
Yeah.
Eddie Jockman of the Rangers, but that is an Islanders crest. And I say
Yes.
the photo is interesting, not only because about your feeling about the Islanders and the Rangers, but I have read that there's a bit of the combative Billy Smith in your goaltending style. True or false?
Yeah. Oh, it's definitely true. And yeah, isn't that ironic, as Alanis Morissette would sing? I had no choice. I had to wear the Islander jersey because that was the league I played in before I made it to my high school hockey team. It was the New York Islanders League, and there it is. And that's what we played in. Also, went and it was also called the New York Islanders High School Hockey League. It was all in the same rink in Farmingdale, so I had no choice. I had to wear their jersey. But the keeping number one, that was big. That's the great Eddie Jockman. I loved him. I would say I'd model myself more after him than Billy Smith, just because he's a Ranger great. But he always came out of the net. He didn't take any crap. He didn't let anyone mess with him in front of his crease. And that's why I fell in love with Eddie Jockman. And plus, he was a little unorthodox. I mean, he was paired back in the day for these your older listeners with Gilles Villemure, who was to me boring. He just stood there back in the day, like a Bernie Perron, right? They just stood there, and either they hit the puck hit him or it didn't. He came out a million feet to cut down the angle. Eddie was just more like all over the place, and I kind of like
Yeah.
that. And also, like I said, he didn't take any crap in front of his net.
Of all the hockey stories I've ever heard, I don't think anyone gives me more chills than the story about Eddie Jockman returning to Madison Square Garden after
Yep.
being traded to the Red Wings.
Right. It wasn't even a trade. It was for $40,000.
Oh,
Basically, they sold him for 40 grand, if I remember correctly. And I remember watching the game with my dad from home, and the amazing Ranger fan base rooting for Eddie, rooting for the Red Wings that night, because how crazy is that, right? It was basically the same night, that
mhm.
he had to put on the Red Wings jersey the same day he got with the exchange was made. And to be at Madison Square Garden where you're beloved in 1975, and he's crying,
Yeah.
he's crying during the national anthem and this. And anyway, the whole fan base, MSG, all of them were rooting against the Rangers and for Eddie and the Red Wings. And the Red Wings won. I think the score was 6-3, something like that, if I remember correctly.
6-4 was the final.
6-4. All right. Well, way to go. Nicely done.
But
Six
uh,
four.
these are the stories I love. I'm not against analytics. I'm not against science. I love knowledge. I love the heat charts, but I'm old and I don't really understand them. And what I like are the people stories. I consider these people who just happen to have chosen hockey for a living. And that is such a beautiful people story about a hockey player.
Really is, right? I mean, nothing has ever come close and nothing ever will because of the way it was back then. Especially one of the heroes being just tossed away, tossed aside. We see that a lot. I felt it wasn't as dramatic, but I remember when Brian Leach, Conn Smythe Trophy winner, 1994, he gets a phone call in his hotel room, say he was traded to the Bruins. I mean, really? I mean, a phone call. I mean, these are kind of things, and also that was a while ago, but not as far. But it was in the late '90s there when he was a Gunner, whenever that was, 2000. I forgot when that happened to him. But those are the things that I remember. And you're right; these stay with you. Whether you're a kid or you're a grown up. It's just you feel like that's no way to treat somebody. So yeah, that's the other one that comes to mind, but not as emotional.
An early part of your TV career came right here in Seattle, 3 years at Cairo TV. Let's take a look.
In order for baseball to become a success here in Seattle, improvements have to be made here at the Kingdome. It's a hot issue right now in local politics and one of equal concern to the M's new ownership. It remains to be seen whether lowering ticket prices will help bring more fans into the Kingdome to watch the Mariners. So far, the opinions on the street have been mixed. With the Goodwill Games less than a year away, officials are hoping that this drug testing program will help put a stop to accusations of substance abuse by U.S. athletes. The Irish set the record straight tonight. They're still #1 in Metro AA after crushing Rainier Beach 23-7, increasing their conference record to 5-0. They're still undefeated despite losing to Eastside Catholic 2 weeks ago. That game doesn't count in the standings. The Vikings of Rainier Beach dropped to 4-2. In West Seattle, Linda Cohn, Cairo Sports.
Wow. Great job by you finding that video. You have just put a smile on my face. You know what? I was better than I thought I was.
What comes to mind when you see that?
I just smile because, the younger me, right? Plus I had dark hair. Full disclosure, that's my a natural hair color. That's the first thing I should
Okay,
clarify.
if you really want to do full disclosure, what deal with the devil did you make so that you haven't aged while gravity has taken this toll on me?
First of all, you look beautiful. And second of all, I have aged, but there's some things I have given up in my life and it has made a big difference. Let's just put it that way. And hopefully I'll continue that way. But boy, thank you. This is really like an episode of This Is Your Life. I love this,
Yeah.
what you have done.
I
Um,
don't have I don't have your 6th grade teacher here in the wings,
no,
but
not gonna walk in there into your set right there. But that was really cool. And that experience at Cairo was the game changer for me. I've said it before, I'll say it again. Because before that, I mean, that was my big break. John Littman, the former news director, gave me a shot. I had sent my tape, back then you have to send videotapes. I created a tape with a cameraman at this Long Island local studio that I was working at for really nothing. And I said, "Can you help me create a sports tape?" And actually, I was doing news. And so I only did one sports story they allowed me to do, which was like Pete Rose on trial or something back in the day. I know we just lost him recently. That's what I thought. I was thinking about that. But that was part of the tape I sent to John Littman, the former news director at Cairo TV. Plus, we sat on the set. I had baked him cookies so he would stay a little longer after a show. And he did. And I put together a videotape. And that's what I sent to John Littman. A year later, I got hired there. And it gave me a chance to cover sports that I never thought I was going to cover in my life, like high school football, realized how big that was on a Friday night. Washington Husky football. I grew up in New York where college football was not a big deal back then. I mean, there was no emotional connection. I was a pro girl, right? I love my pro teams. And then, a chance to cover the Seahawks, obviously, and the Mariners, were great. I mean, they weren't great back then, but they had Randy Johnson and Ken Griffey Jr., and that was amazing. So I was able to hone my skills and get better and better with Seattle. But you showing me those clips, I guess the extra work paid off because that's really good. I love that. That really made me happy because I'm so hard on myself. Like
yeah.
if you would have asked me without showing those clips, I talk about how like I mispronounced some names of, school names, right? Or this or that, or I only think of the negative. Um, right or wrong, it helps me to be better because I think of the negative, not like, oh, I was just great. But when you show me those clips, that was all good. So thank you for that.
Okay, I hope you don't take back the thank you when I ask you to tell me the story about your first live shot.
Oh yeah, no, this was a great thing. I thought my first live show, I was nervous. So the studio and the local Long Island TV station that I worked at, one of my friends who worked there, she was the #1 anchor and reporter, Lee Tyrell. Um, I was, back in the day, no cell phones. So, I had to do a live shot at the Sonics game and for the 6 o'clock show on Cairo TV. And first time. And I was really nervous. And I remember calling her, like finding a regular phone, because that's what you had to do back then, 1989, by the way, late 1989. And somehow she picked up the phone and I told her what was about to happen in 20 minutes. And she says, just, gave me the best advice ever. Here I am thinking I got everything in my head and I got to spit it all out without stumbling. And she just said, just make believe you're telling me, like you're telling me the story of what's going to happen in this game, or just break it down, keep it simple, and like, oh, you're just telling me what's going to go on. And that was those are the magic words. And sometimes you just, that phrase, keep it simple, stupid, is really accurate. So I say this when I talk to young people a lot too. I'll always say that and recite that story, because when we're busy worrying about impressing the world, that's when we screw up. That's when we stumble, because that's not us. I mean, I got into this even though when I went to Sports Center, same thing happened to me. I was trying to, rock the world and be superwoman, and it came back to bite me. And I turned out I wasn't myself.
Yeah.
That personality that I have was like suffocating, because I was thinking, oh, it's more important to throw out stats and this and that, as opposed to just having a conversation and being passionate and having that all come out. And for some reason, I had to be reminded of that. And but that's part of the process.
Well, don't leave out the part about the fisheye lens.
Oh my God, that's right. That was so screwed up. The camera guy had this fisheye lens. It looked like I looked like from, somewhere at Pike Place Market. You throw a fish. I mean, I look like in Davey's locker. I'm like,
Yeah.
I had this like the total fish. And I was like freaking out because, as a woman, especially, you're trying to make an impression. That's part of the gig. You don't want to look like you just landed from another planet. And apparently I did. And I didn't know about it till later. And, you don't want to get mad at somebody like your camera guy. And
Like
it's
you were
all,
looking through a peephole or something.
yeah, it was just really ew,
Okay.
and but that's part of the learning process too. Like you're on a team, right? When you're on a broadcast team, and you can't rip the guy's head off.
I want to point out too, you're wearing your "Keep It Simple, Stupid" T-shirt today.
Oh, why? Oh my God. Oh my gosh. I can now use this as opposed to Kiss, which my son and I love and we bond over. I can now transform it to Keep It Simple, Stupid. You're brilliant. Now I know why you're so successful all these years.
I I don't care if that's not true. I'm going to accept the compliment anyway.
Yes. Oh,
Now, I want to read a quote from your wonderful autobiography, Conehead. Actually, before I get to that,
okay.
this wasn't the first choice for the cover art. Linda, I don't know if you're aware of this. This was the original photo the publishers were considering, but myself, anyone who has hair should show it off. So I think the cover on the left, that you made the right choice, don't you?
You know what though? That is striking though. I mean, I do like the way I look on the right, what the publishers wanted, if that was only the case. I didn't like the way my hair was cut, to be full disclosure with you. I loved everything about me wearing a Mark Messier jersey and wear boxing gloves and all the sporting equipment around me, because that was striking. Uh, but I don't know, maybe me wearing a cone head would have gotten more eyes to it. Who knows? But that was very clever.
Or next book. But for your next book, I have another title, The Scoop with Linda Cohn.
Oh, you know what? It does sound ice cream related, and it does
Or
make a
maybe you
lot of
could
sense.
that could be a KHN segment.
Yeah.
Um,
All right. That's
we
not bad.
when we
I'll
finish the
suggest it.
when we finish the recording, I'll give you my address where you can send the 10%.
Okay.
Okay, so the quote from the book, you say about your first tour of duty here from 1989 to 1992, quote, the city is friendly and fun, and there's an overall celebration of the simpler things in life. And you talk specifically about like picnics at Gasworks Park. So I guess we made a good impression on you.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I love Seattle so much. My daughter was born there, which means everything to me. That's why I still have this emotional connection with Seattle. When I was married, my husband and I at the time, we bought our first house in Seattle, beautiful Queen Anne. And Seattle was very special. It took ESPN finding me and hiring me the second time to get me out of Seattle. See, they first contacted me 6 months into my tenure at Cairo, and the quote of all quotes was my husband at the time saying, "I didn't move 3,000 miles away only to move back to the east after 6 months." It might have been 3 months. It could have been 3 to 6 months. I forgot actually. But I love Seattle. It's so beautiful. It's still beautiful. Gone back there, and when the Kraken made their run to the postseason and won that first round against Colorado, and it was a very exciting time. I was able to cover a bunch of their games throughout the year and also in the postseason, and the fans were just as amazing. And it's just so wonderful. I was so happy when they got the team because I know how great that fan base is. It's a great sports fan base, and they're very grateful regarding where they live, and they're very loving no matter what happens on the ice or on a court or on a field. Hopefully, they'll get an NBA team back too, because then we'll all be happy. Hopefully, that's in the cards. Um, so nothing surprises me, and I'm just so glad Seattle is just as beautiful. And I'm really looking forward. I mean, I'm only having a part-time role. The great Ian Furness is doing the bulk of the hosting. I still host ESPN Late Night Sports Center in LA, but we managed to carve out about 15 games, and my first one is in October 17th at the beautiful Climate Pledge Arena, and I'm so looking forward to. But you can bet I will be nervous, just like I was with all of these situations, whether it's being in goal, trying out for the Panthers, everything I do, whatever, Cairo Sports Center, my first time, and I will be nervous again. It doesn't matter how many years you work in this business. If you don't feel the butterflies, something's wrong with you.
Since you brought up ESPN, Linda Cohn is the Gordie Howe of sports centers. 32 years and still going strong, more than 5,000 times answering the flash of the red light. And I think you'd agree that the red light is better when it's on top of a studio camera than behind your net, right?
Yes, it's a positive, not a negative. Yeah. So yeah, it's really amazing. Other people. I've worked with so many amazing people over the years at ESPN Sports Center. It's probably now. I mean, that 5,000 number was back in, I think, 2016, 2017, something around that. Now I've done who knows how many more I've done. I think they stopped counting. They said enough. We stopped counting with Linda. Just tell her where to be and what time. But people are like, "Oh, why didn't you leave ESPN? Why didn't because we see a lot of that, right? Through the years, people come and go. And I put my family first. I have two amazing kids that are now grown, and they still have their same friends from growing up in Connecticut. Bristol, Connecticut is where I hosted Sports Center for the first 27 years, give or take 26 years. And I didn't want to be that person that just jumped around because of a career or the grass is always greener. Could I have made more money? Probably. But I mean, family was always most important to me. And that's why I stayed. Plus, how can you beat it? You're doing highlights of games and teams. I mean, the other night, I couldn't believe I was like, one of the teams that I love are the wonderful New York Mets. And last week they had a week to remember of all weeks, just doing miraculous things in the eighth and ninth inning. And the other day I was hosting Sports Center after one of their miracle wins, and I was like, this doesn't get old. I'm going to get to do the highlight of the Mets, and speak to Met fans like myself and show my passion and tell the story over a highlight. And considering how long I've been doing this for a living, that wasn't old to me. I love that. You just get fired up. Or what I'm looking forward to do with a Kraken, being at Climate Pledge Arena, beautiful set there, looking around, and when that red light goes on, here we go. This is exciting, and I will show. I may not be the most knowledgeable person in the room, but I'll tell you this: I'll be the most passionate and most fired up.
It is absolutely true. I believe you because you've done those X thousand number of shows, all with your signature smile, your infectious laugh. So I have to ask, How do you keep the enthusiasm?
Yeah, well, you realize first it's a team and it's not about you, right? Because there's a lot of hardworking people around you trying to make you look good too. Like the researcher, right? When you're asking the questions, they try to make yourself look better. But if it wasn't for the researcher, he's quicker than me to get that information. Or your co-anchor, you don't want to drop the ball there. All of it. But I do it because I think I said this to you earlier, and it's a fact. I make believe that someone is seeing me for the very first time. And I have to prove to them that I belong, that there's a reason why I've been in this chair for so long, that I'm not resting on my laurels, that it's not, and I could, but I don't. And so it's just a little game you talk, it's a little talking game that you play with yourself. Like, here we go, this is it. And that inspires me. And I also think, because listen, I'm old enough, just like you, I'm old enough to know, like, I hear it all the time from people, and it's a compliment. Like when people say, "Linda, I grew up with you." I used to, before go getting the kindergarten bus, I'd watch the re-airs in the morning, over and over again, or whatever it is. And now they're 35 years old, right? So that's a compliment. So I'm hoping, and I still think there are young people out there, kids before they go to school, because the LA Sports Center is the one that's in the early morning. It's repeated. So it's the late Sports Center that are watching me for the very first time. And so I'm like giving hope to young people that they too could be sitting behind the desk. And that's what people have said to me, that especially being a woman in a man's world, especially back then when I first started, and the decade after that, and the decade after that, women saw that, I wasn't just, no offense to sideline reporters, because I was a rinkside reporter, and it's a lot of work. You got to create stories and make things happen. But I wanted to be I want to be in that anchor chair. I wanted
Yeah.
to talk about a lot of sports and a lot of teams. And I was able to do that. And that's what I wanted from the get-go. I could always been full-time sideline, but I didn't want to do that.
Oh
But I
no, yeah,
mean,
no one puts Linda in the corner.
it's not a corner. Don't get me wrong. They're hardworking people
No,
doing the
no,
sideline,
I
but
get you.
but yeah.
By the way, uh, I was born in Brooklyn. I have a signed baseball from Cleon Jones and Ed
Um,
Kranepool.
met
I
greats.
was at Shea in '69. I actually saw the a pitcher for the Pirates. I'm not sure who it was, throw a no hitter against the Amazons. So
Wow,
I'm right with you.
that's great. Awesome. Yeah.
Um, Now, some at your network have been, let's say, openly hostile toward the NHL. Max Kellerman in 2020 said, no one really cares about hockey. Stephen A. Smith last year said, all I know about hockey is that the puck is black. Now, I'm not going to ask you to answer for them, but have you had to fight battles over the years to make sure that hockey highlights and stories got into your shows?
I have fought those battles. And I did fight, and I did respond to Max Kellerman back in 2020. And I forgot what my tweet was right at him. He didn't respond back to me. And I like Max. And I was shocked that he said that out loud and in public. It made him look like an idiot, stupid. And I got like slapped on the wrist a little bit for doing that, because the boss at the time said to me, "You don't criticize your colleagues, no matter what."
He should have been slapped on a different part of his anatomy.
There you go. There you go. And so I always fight. I'm not the only one that fights for that now. One of my colleagues, John Butcher Gross, is always, he's big on college hockey, I would say more, but he fights the battle too. I'm not the only one. But I'm always looking, even if it's just making a top play
Mhm.
nominee. I mean, and that's been better because we have great goalie saves all the time. The other day we had that global series, and Jacob Markstrom already looked like the save of the year for the Devils. Like, well, and we got that, and it was the number one top play of the night, and it was a busy night in sports. So it's easier now because ESPN has the hockey with TNT. So the fights are a little easier, but it's still, compared to the other three major sports, sadly, uh, it's lower on the pecking order. Although the postseason last year was so phenomenal
Mhm.
that I think it woke up a lot of eyes to the greatness. Having Connor McDavid in the Stanley Cup final had a lot to do with it. But It's getting there, it's getting there. I just hope it continues to get the exposure it deserves. I haven't watched it yet, but I understand it's a fabulous thing on Amazon Prime that really focuses on the NHL last year, different things, players and all that. I think that's going to help the league more to do that. I mentioned the global series. People probably didn't know it existed. Like the Devils and Sabres played 2 games in Prague. That's my problem with this. If you're going to go outside North America to play games that count, these weren't exhibition. These
Right.
counted. Make a big deal about it. Not
Yeah.
just in Prague. People didn't know. The
Yeah.
average sports fan, am I right? They had
Yes.
no idea what these are for real. Then how come we're still having preseason games? Like didn't make any sense. The NHL needs to follow in the footsteps as much as possible as the NFL and have a big event mentality. And that's even with their, season openers that also do count. But that's the only thing. I think there's some things they could be better at. But overall, the NHL has grown leaps and bounds. And that's because of the personalities and the players. And even when you have a Connor McDavid, who doesn't have a great personality, but you'll see him like you'll never seen him before in this Amazon Prime thing. Um, you got to show that off. You got to do something.
Speaking of showing off, actor Will Arnett of 30 Rock and Arrested Development fame. He was born in Toronto, so naturally, when you two got together, it was for a one-on-one shootout. And I'm going to have you narrate some clips here, Linda, because I know you're a pro at voicing over highlights you haven't seen before or for a while. But
Right.
before I do, I want to point out that unlike ESPN, I went to the trouble of creating slow motion and stop action replays. So,
Wow. Very
okay.
talented. Yeah.
So, Linda, it's all yours.
Okay, yeah, I was introducing Will there, and here I am. We're in the lobby. Well, yeah, obviously, it definitely looks like a lobby. My form's still not great, but again, no mask. So I was a little concerned if he was able to lift the hockey ball. But how about that move? And how about my bravery? And great job with the slow mo, making that look even more dramatic. But look at the. When I think about it, was I nuts to trust Will Arnett that he was going to hit that orange ball and lift it? And there's another great stop. So we had a blast. He's fantastic. He's got that big podcast, the Shameless. Look at me there. I'm like, it was so much fun, for
You
sure.
never gave up. Yet, as a goalie, you never give up till the whistle. So,
Yeah, no, that was
but
great.
I I want to mention this save again
This
because
should
it
be
puts
my
me in mind.
screenshot. Yeah, this should be like a screenshot. You're gonna have to send me all this stuff, and I have to, you know.
I'll send it all to you, but this puts me in mind of the 2018 final and Braden Holtby of the Capitals making
Oh,
the save on Alex
so
Tuck
great.
of the Golden Knights and Linda Cohn. Look at that. For the love of extension.
Very nice. Yeah, that was great. Boy, thank you for sharing this. That is, again, this is going to I'm going to have a great week because of what you showed. And yeah, this is the thing. This is what I need. It's well documented. I have to show this to people and will be able to watch this. And I'm going to send this to people. That I really did play goal and I was pretty good.
Not only did you play goal, but you want to talk about the passion.
Yeah.
I can't say
Look at
I
this.
can't say for certain the best champagne you've ever tasted.
Oh my God.
But
It
I'm
didn't
going to
get
hazard a guess it came during this photo. What's going on here?
Yeah, it's a great story behind this. This is the night the Rangers won the Stanley Cup. This wasn't like 8 months after. This was the night at the Ranger party. Somehow, me and my friend Georgie got into this party at the bottom of Madison Square Garden because I was there as a fan. Game 7 against Vancouver, incredible, unbelievable. Of course, it came down to the last second. I mean, it was torture for Ranger fans. You have to understand this. I think you do because of your background. But there was a face off with 1.2 seconds left in the game, 1 goal lead. And it was amazing. So, but even more amazing, a friend of ours who worked for NBC, who still works for NBC, Bruce Beck, somehow Georgie and I timed it well. We knew the party was at the bottom, it was at the Paramount Theater, I think, at the bottom of Madison Square Garden. That's what it was called then. And Bruce Beck, for some reason, was at the door like a doorman. And we know Bruce. And I'm like, oh my God, Georgie, we got to go in there. And Bruce let us in. I don't even know how he got in, but it didn't matter to us. So we got in there, and all the players were there with their wives, their girlfriends, their friends. And then there was the cup. Then we walked in, and to the right was the cup, and everybody, like relatives, were drinking at that point from the cup. And there was a great photographer who's still working, I think, for Newsday. He was there, and he lifted up, nobody stopped us. We went onto the wire there, the little thing, like in the VIP area. I saw that cup. You see, I have my two hands on it. I'm like, give me some of that. I don't even know what was in it. I don't care. But I was like, and then the great photographer, I should remember his name. Maybe it was Philip. I don't know. I can't remember. I think it was. But he took the picture. Else no one would believe me. I drank from the cup the night the Rangers won the Stanley Cup.
I love that. Now, it hasn't been all fun and games. Quoting snippets from your book, I've been demeaned and berated about being in the locker room. Nobody really cares what a guy talking about sports on TV looks like, but put a woman up there and it's another story. People seem to be spending way too much energy paying attention to what I was wearing. Now, personally, as someone with a mom, a wife, um, a sister, and a daughter,
Nice.
this makes me crazy. So please share with us, if you would, how you deal and how you advise other women to deal with the sexual harassment, the misogyny, and the double standard about appearance.
Yeah, there's so much there. I mean, you're right. It was just sad. Back in the day, anything was allowed. That's what's sad. Nowadays, women for the most part are protected, meaning guys are smarter. Guys can't do that. They get it now. But back in the day, there was nothing to help out women like myself, young women like me. Um, but I just carried on because I just laughed off most of it. Some of the stuff I couldn't laugh off, and some of the stuff made me cry. I've cried multiple times in various ladies' rooms during my career. It was hard, and that was before social media. But I have stories which I wrote in the book where at ESPN, for instance, when I first started, anyone could call the switchboard, and they would just kind of patch you into your voicemail, and I would get some really frightening calls, including the classic story was a mother of two boys who was ripping me because of the way I was standing for a on camera lead in to a story. And if I tell you, she said my legs were too far apart. I'm standing, that my legs might have been like 6 inches apart. I mean, it's just unbelievable.
And you
Um,
were wearing pants.
yes, it was absolutely insane, the stuff, and no one seemed to care or monitor it. And even if you tried to complain, they'd laugh it off. Oh, don't worry about it. I had a situation where a colleague, who's still working at ESPN, was so insecure that he made a fake situation about my appearance that doesn't exist and never did exist. And he had a radio show too, and he would say that. He would call me by that name. And I would complain to someone at ESPN, and they didn't do anything. They just left it off. Like, oh, don't worry about it. And it took years and years and years not to be associated with this false nickname. I don't even want to say that because that sounds like it's a positive thing, but it was a negative. And it was his insecure way of taking away from me because I was really good at what I did.
My soapbox point about all this is we need to not only talk to our daughters, we need to talk to our sons,
Mm,
because this won't really end until the men who are in power don't think this way and don't teach their sons that this is okay. Okay,
yeah.
end of rant.
Yeah, no, great point, for sure. But I will say this, I mean, I chose to be in this business. So there's that. But I did not choose to be treated a certain way, right? So I chose to be in this business. It comes with a territory, some of it, And back then, everything went with the territory, sadly. But thank goodness it has moved in the right direction, where young men are so educated now and get it. And, and then the young women can speak up, uh, if there's something. And now, but I still will say this. I say this all the time to young women who are in the business. Treat every mention, and my daughter was the one that reminded me of this. Treat every mention in social media the same, the good with the bad. And if you don't do that, um, it's a problem because they all don't matter. So you shouldn't get so high up when you get something positive through social media, and you shouldn't get super down if you have something negative through social media. That's It doesn't matter what those people say. So it matters if you've done a good job and you've prepared for your assignment. And then no one could say anything negative about you because you know the truth. It's not about them.
Wonderful. Since you are a trailblazing woman in your field, I imagine you've been following Jessica Campbell's journey, the Kraken assistant coach. I would much rather talk about how Campbell is an accomplished coach who's earned everything she's achieved. All absolutely true. But we both know she's going to be under an intense spotlight. As we're recording this, she's the lead story on NHL.com. So tell me about Jessica Campbell's journey and what you're going to be looking for and what you hope for her.
I'm so excited to have her behind the bench. It's great. And you know what? There's so many things I want to say. And I'm glad she got that publicity. I'm glad NHL.com is all over this, but there's no better city than Seattle for this to happen in because Seattle fans, they're great. I mean, there's so much diversity in Seattle, and the Kraken are on the forefront of that. And Dan Balsma, kudos to him. He brings Jessica from Coachella. It would have been awful if he decided to not bring her. It would have been so bad. She's great, and she's going to do wonders with his power play, and she's got the pieces because she's doing a lot of work with the power play. I think it's fantastic. I told my producer at LA Sports Center, I go, we got to do a story on her. We got to get this done. Let's get her, or when the Kraken are in LA, we got to bring her in and do a live interview. So that's what I haven't told her yet, but that's what I'm looking to to have to. But this is not shocking, and that's the thing. It shouldn't be a big deal, right? That's the thing. It shouldn't be a big deal. She's qualified. She's
Right.
amazing, right? What a background she has. Look it up. Google her, everybody. So and she has the support. So it's great.
I promise we're coming down the home stretch, and I know
Okay.
I've kept you a lot longer than I promised, but it's time to talk Kraken Hockey Network.
Yeah.
You have said, I hate the status quo. So, in one way, it doesn't surprise me that you ended up with this new gig, but tell us how it happened.
Yeah, I'm just so excited. There's an opportunity. I've known since the right before the Kraken came into existence. Todd Lewicki, we've known each other. We met in New York. We had a cup of coffee. This was like 2 years before the Kraken first dropped the puck. And he kind of was just kind of testing the waters with me, whether I'd go back to Seattle and be a part of the Kraken in some capacity. And I was just so honored and flattered that he thought of me. And but I couldn't leave ESPN at that time. And so about 5 years, so circled back to this off season when my contract was up at ESPN at the time. It was almost up, and I didn't know if I was going to re-sign with ESPN in any capacity. And Todd kind of reached out again, and then we were talking about possibilities, what I could do to work for the Kraken full time, not only in the broadcast element, but in other areas of the organization as well, which really was intriguing for me. But ESPN and just the logistics, they came back with another year, and then kudos to the Kraken who didn't give up on me and said, "Hey, we're going to have this KHN, Kraken Hockey Network. We'd love to have you for a few games, 15 games, 18 games, whatever it is, and be a part of the broadcast team." And I'm like, I jumped at that. So I'm arranging with my schedule, doing it on my days off and vacation days just to be a part of this transition, the start at the Kraken Hockey Network. If I can play a small part and add to an already existing fantastic broadcast team, that's what I'm excited about. I didn't want to say no to that again. I wanted to be a part of this because great things are about to be for the Seattle Kraken.
Now, because nothing really ever really goes away on the internet, we have to point out this is not your first foray into a team specific NHL hosting gig. I have to ask you, Linda, what in the world is Duck Center?
Wow, this was funny. This is when we were honoring. They had me put on that wig and everything. That's Guy Bear, of course, the fabulous former goaltender for the Ducks. And you see how I'm cracking up. We were making believe it's like 1990, whatever it was. And, it's back in time. You see, I can't keep a straight face with him. Uh, it was just hilarious. And we just did this bit for the Ducks. The Ducks, living out here in LA, I'm not in Orange County, but my parents used to live, when they were alive, used to live in Orange County for a while. So when I would visit them, we went to many Ducks games, including the amazing year of getting jiggy with it, J.S. Giguere. And it was, they always held a special place in my heart. So I always was doing anything for the Ducks. Obviously, now that has to curtail a bit. I have to hide my Trevor Zegras framed photo when he signed it to the goat. I was like, oh my God. You want to hear fun fact? I brought him up. I love Trevor Zegras. He's such a cool dude. I wish him the best. I hope everything continues to progress in the right way and he stays healthy. But when he was 12 years, we went to the same trainer. I went to this amazing trainer who trains NHL players, Ben Prentice in Connecticut, Prentice Performance, whatever. And I went for a couple of years. I was in the best shape I ever was. That was around that time when I tried out for the Panthers, by the way. I was in the greatest shape because of Prentice and Ben Prentice. Anyway, while I was training with him, I'd see these young kids, I figure they're on some junior hockey teams or whatever. And little did I know, there was like 14-year-old Trevor Zegras and Spencer Knight, who were buddies. They were in like one corner. I'm here trying to do a few sit-ups in this. And I'm like, and he remembered, it's just so cool. You just never know. The hockey community is the whole point of this, how small it is and how fantastic it is. But yeah, no, I wish Ben Prentice would open up something here in LA. He's in Arizona now and Connecticut, so I could get back to that. And then maybe try out if the Kraken need me. Full circle. There you go.
Let's close with this. North American hockey media isn't showering a lot of love on the Kraken. ESPN's own off-season power rankings have Seattle 26th out of 32 teams. But I know your mantra is accentuate the positive.
Yep.
So share with us what should have Kraken fans excited.
Yeah, be excited, Kraken fans, because the Kraken is a sleeper team. The Kraken will sneak in as a wild card. You heard it here first. I think they'll be able, first of all, the additions that Ron Francis made, getting Chandler Stevenson, and of course, Brandon Montour, bringing in Stanley Cup pedigree. I know Philip Grubauer has a Stanley Cup with Colorado. I get that. But that means a lot in the dressing room. It means a lot regarding the pressure that Matty Beniers, Jared McCann, all these guys won't have as much. Yes, they need to put the puck in the net more. That's still an issue. But yes, they're very deep at center now, which I love with the addition of Chandler Stevenson. And it's the little things that these guys will do. And you're going to see this, Kraken fans, during the season. Brandon Montour is going to make the power play so much better. I mean, he gets pucks to the net so quick from the point, and there are guys in front of the net, and who they are. They're going to stand in front of the net and put the puck in the net, and it'll hit off them. They'll get a rebound. We saw that in the preseason. And how about Shane Wright? I think the time is now finally. I know it's preseason, but man, it was great to see him put the puck in the net. He just looked so comfortable for the very first time in a Kraken uniform. So I have high hopes. I think they'll sneak in. I think we won't know until the battle going on late March. It's going to be that kind of crazy season. And I love the coaching staff. I love the new coach. He's making it fun. Last year it became way too serious. It was too intense. And, there's just a timetable that players can handle that. So don't be discouraged. Yes, I find the positive, and the Kraken will prove them all wrong. I hope all the players read these stupid articles and predictions and know that I believe, and they will sneak in as a wild card.
Okay, I'm ready to run through a brick wall now. Besides KHN and Sports Center, where can we find you this season talking hockey?
I try to post more, but definitely like at Linda Cohn. You can't go wrong. That's LindaCohn on Instagram and X, Twitter X. Those are the two I use, but other than that, I always get hockey on Sports Center with the LA Sports Center. So there you go.
Linda
And
Cohn has been inducted into at least 4 different Halls of Fame: the National Sports Media Association Hall of Fame, SUNY Oswego Athletic Hall of Fame, Suffolk Sports Hall of Fame, National Jewish Sports Hall of Fame. Am I missing any?
no, that's it. 4.
Okay. And if that isn't an indication that you've made it, surely this is a sub sandwich named after
Oh,
you at the Oswego Sub Shop. Have you had occasion to sample the Elco 5000?
oh yes. Let me tell you, it's a very healthy sandwich. I had it. Chicken breast, banana peppers, uh, avocado, really good stuff. You can eat the bread. It's all right because the rolls there are great. That was one of the biggest honors. Yeah, forget the 4 Hall of Fames. Having a sub named after you at the city where you went to college and had so much fun for 4 years, Oswego, New York, the Oswego Sub Shop, still in business, by the way. So that was an honor. So is this being a part of your incredible podcast.
Only Linda Cohn would say March Madness for me is the playoff push in the NHL. That is why
Absolutely.
everyone who loves the Kraken is psyched to have you part of the team. Thank you so much. It has been a privilege. I said this off camera, I'll say it on. You are a mensch. You are a positive influence. You can't talk to Linda Cohn and not feel energized afterward. Thank you so much for the generosity of your time.
Oh, it is my pleasure. You made it so much fun. And we went back in time and you put a smile on my face. So thank you for that.